Chapter 6. Stephen spent most of the afternoon making phone calls, trying to get the cast of Lazy Love to agree to make an appearance on the ranch. All of them were busy, and he hated to even ask it of them, but they all knew what this project meant to him. Finally, he got the agreement of everyone necessary. It was only the main 4 characters anyone wanted to meet, and they were very loyal to him, making things easy. He thanked them all and helped them with the travel arrangements. Instead of waiting until the next day, he walked back over to the main house. Once again, he had to speak to Wade's assistant first. She seemed very loyal to him, which told him a lot about the kind of man Wade was. People weren't loyal to bosses who weren't good to them in the first place. Sorry to come by unannounced. I know he'll see me, though. Stephen hoped he was right. There was the off chance Wade was too busy for him. The woman nodded. I've just finished typing up your contract. She pushed a button. Wade, Stephen Pickman is back again. Send him in. Wade was on his feet when Stephen opened the door. Do you have good news for me? Of course, I do. How's this weekend? Wade's eyes widened. This weekend? I figured we'd be booking them in 6 months or something. After I mentioned where I was and how amazing the ranch is, they were all on board. One of the actors met his wife right after she had a writing retreat here on the ranch with Kaya. Stephen hadn't connected it was the same ranch until the phone call with Bob. Yes, of course. I forgot about that. So she'll be coming, too? Bob said she wouldn't miss seeing Kaya for anything. Stephen sat down in the chair across from Wade's desk. I hear you have a contract for me. He was ready to sign it, unless they were asking for a ridiculous amount of money. I do. It's got what we want to be paid, and all of our stipulations for this. Wade pulled a sheaf of papers from a drawer and pushed them across his desk. Stephen looked through them, quickly scanning for the information he needed and making sure he read all the fine print. There was nothing he wanted or needed to change, so he quickly scrawled his signature on the final page. Can you accommodate 3 couples, with 1 child each, on Saturday night? They fly in Saturday afternoon and out on Sunday afternoon. And they're willing to hold an event on Saturday night where people can meet them, and they will sign autographs. I was told this is your quietest time of year, so I didn't think it would be too terribly difficult. Wade nodded. I don't think we have an event in the event barn this weekend. It's so close after Christmas that the ranch is pretty quiet. I can clear 3 cabins as well. Sounds good. Thank you. Stephen got to his feet, shaking Wade's hand. I'm excited that we're going to be able to get going on this project. And now he felt like he could finally talk to Michelle about it. He'd hated hiding his real purpose at the ranch from her. I'm excited to see where this goes. I don't think we'd want a lot of crews on the property, but 1 film crew sounds good to me. Wade seemed as pleased with their agreement as Stephen was. Is there someone I should talk to about the facilities for the meet and greet? Stephen asked. I'd like to have all that set up before they get here. And Saturday is just 2 days away. I still can't believe you talked them into coming so quickly. Wade shook his head at him. Neither can I, but I'm certainly not complaining. Stephen took the name of the person in charge of the event barn and promised to call her immediately. Wade said she was out of the office that afternoon, or Stephen could have spoken to her right there. As he left the main house, he dialed the number he'd been given. This is Lily. Lily, this is Stephen Pickman. I was given your number by Wade. I need to set up an event for Saturday night. He said the event barn would be the best location. Do you know if it's available? It is. What type of event is it? Lily asked. It's going to be a small meet and greet with the actors from the show Lazy Love. The 4 primary actors are coming, and they will be signing posters and meeting fans. Stephen had done this type of event with the 4 of them many times before, so he wasn't worried about how his people would adapt to whatever they gave him to work with. They were all professionals. Does Kelsey have something to do with this? She loves that show. Stephen laughed. As a matter of fact, she does. I'm one of the directors for the show, so I'm setting it up for her. Sounds good to me. Are we opening this to the public? He frowned, wondering how much he should push this. Let's. I don't imagine we'll get too many people with a 2-day notice in rural Idaho. You might be surprised. I'll get some flyers posted around town, and we'll make sure the guests and staff of the ranch know about it. Refreshments? Yeah, refreshments would be good. What would you normally serve for something like this? He usually left that type of detail up to whomever was setting up the event. She made a soft humming sound. Why don't we do cookies? Finger sandwiches? Does that work for you? I can have punch, coffee, tea, and water to drink. That all sounds good. What time? You tell me. You're the one wanting to do the event. Why don't we say from 6 to 9? My people will be flying in at 3 Saturday afternoon, so that will give them a little time to settle in and rest before they need to be there. Remember, we do have a childcare facility on property. I will let the actors know. Thank you so much for your help. He paused for a moment, and then added, let me give you my phone number so you can let me know if there are any problems or ask me any questions that might come up. I have it on my caller ID. I will verify everything with you 2 hours before the event, and I'll be in touch if there are problems between now and then. Thank you so much for contacting me. Thank you. Stephen stuck his phone into his pocket and wondered if Kelsey realized all the hoops she was making people jump through just so she could meet the stars of her favorite show. Even as he thought it, he grinned. He knew Valerie, Amber, and May would all get a huge kick out of Kelsey. He wandered back toward his cabin, needing to rest for a bit before trivia that evening. He couldn't wait to see Michelle in her element. She seemed as though she loved games to him. Asterisk. Michelle couldn't believe how nervous she was to meet Stephen for trivia that night. They'd played trivia together and spent a whole lot of time together that week, and she was only now getting this nervous? She knew it had something to do with him talking to Jacqueline. No romance on the ranch was official unless Jacqueline was involved, and now that she was, it kind of freaked her out a little. She met him in front of the restaurant, waiting as patiently as she did anything else, which is to say, not very patiently at all. I'm not sure this is a good idea. Stephen looked at her with surprise. It's not? She shook her head. Everything was fine and even seemed casual until you talked to Jacqueline. That changed everything in my mind, and in everyone else's. She wasn't sure how to explain just how strong Jacqueline's reputation was as the ranch's matchmaker. Why? She was making no sense to him. Because Jacqueline is the ranch matchmaker. No one is official until she's spoken to, and she's been spoken to. She knew she wasn't making a lot of sense, but she didn't know how to get it across. He studied her for a moment, trying to understand. So it was okay to go out with me as long as Jacqueline wasn't involved? Yes. Don't you see? Everything is different now. I really don't see, but I'll take your word for it. She took a deep breath. I'm being silly, and I know it, but it's still how I feel. It's as if some imaginary switch was flipped, and now that she knows about us, there's more to it than there was. Stephen frowned. Would that be such a bad thing? I can't deny I have feelings for you. Do you not have feelings for me? He hoped he wasn't the only one with feelings, because his were so strong, he couldn't imagine life without her. Well, sure I do, but it's just, he cut her off by grabbing her by the waist and kissing her. Michelle wound her arms around his neck and clung to him. She wanted everything to be the same, but she also wanted everything to be more. Confusion was not her friend. When he finally lifted his head, he looked deeply into her eyes. I think tonight should be a night alone together. No trivia. I have something to tell you, and it should be said in private, I think. Her heart seemed to skip a beat at his words. She nodded. All right. Where do you want to go? Was he going to tell her that he was married with 3 kids, 2 dogs, a cat, 4 birds, and a pet goldfish? Or even a whole tank of goldfish? He shrugged. Well, we still need to eat, so could we drive into Weston? Seems like there were food options there. He'd only driven to the grocery store in town, so he hadn't paid a lot of attention to restaurants, but surely there was something. Sure. She followed him to his cabin and climbed into the passenger seat of his car. Nice car. Rental? Not really. It belongs to the ranch, and they're letting me use it during my visit. Michelle frowned at that. I've never heard of the family just letting someone use a car. That's strange. I'm a unique case, and I'm going to explain all about why when we sit down for supper. What's the quietest restaurant in Weston? He didn't want any distractions when he told her about his real purpose there. Most of the restaurants are more family dining than anything else. Why don't we pick something up and take it to my place? Perfect. Where should we pick something up from? There's a small pizza place, and the pizza is really good. You'd think it was a more expensive restaurant, it's so good. Tell me how to get there, Stephen said. While he drove, she phoned in an order so they wouldn't have to wait as long. She strained her brain, trying to remember if she'd managed to make her bed that morning. She tried to do it every day, but sometimes it just didn't happen. The pizza was waiting for them when they got there, and they took it straight back to her place. She had half of a duplex, and he parked in the driveway, very interested in where she lived. I'll get the pizza. You get the door. Michelle hurried to the door, unlocking and opening it, then she flipped on a light and looked around, making sure it was neat, before she let him in. She smiled to herself. She'd even put her breakfast dishes into the dishwasher and made her bed. Nothing to complain about there. He walked in behind her, looking around. There were mementos of her travels everywhere. She had told him she'd spent 3 years working in Australia, and there were some Aboriginal art pieces on the walls. Very nice. She smiled, thankful that her panic over the state of her house had been for nothing. It truly didn't look bad at all. She got down plates and glasses, getting them each a glass of ice water, and then they served their pizza and took it to the table to eat it. I can't believe how good this pizza tastes. I don't think I realized quite how hungry I was. Stephen took a bite and nodded. This really is good. They need to franchise. Nah. Then it wouldn't be our special little secret anymore. Michelle loved having special things in Weston, Idaho that no one else in the world had. He smiled at that. So, I came to the ranch to check it out and try to make a deal with the Westons. Have you read Kaya's book about the Westons' ancestors? Michelle nodded. Sure. I think everyone on the ranch has. It was a good marketing ploy for her, because we all wanted autographed copies. Why? Well, someone sent it to me and told me it should be a television series, and I read it. I loved it, and I decided to head up the project as an executive producer, which is a new role for me. It's always been something I knew I would eventually do, but it wasn't the right time, until now. Why didn't you just tell me that when we met? I said I'd keep it quiet until we had a location for filming. I should have told you, but I just didn't feel like I could and keep my word to my partners on the project. He reached out and took her hand in his. Forgive me? There's really nothing to forgive. You weren't obligated to tell me anything. Michelle was surprised to find she felt a little hurt by his lack of honesty with her though. Not that he'd lied, he just wasn't forthcoming with all the details. No, I wasn't obligated, but for our relationship to go anywhere, I do need to tell you everything from here on out. I signed a contract with Wade today. One of the stipulations was that I get the 4 main stars from Lazy Love here to sign autographs. Michelle couldn't help but be amused by that. Kelsey? Who else? So I spent half the afternoon on the phone getting the 4 of them to agree, and then the other half was spent with Wade signing the contract and on the phone with Lily setting up the event. It'll be on Saturday night in the event barn. I was hoping you'd go as my date. He knew it was a stretch for her, and would be completely out of her comfort zone, but it was important to him. What kind of event are we talking about? Am I expected to wear a dress? Can I wear slacks? He shrugged. It's going to be the 4 actors signing posters. I'll have to wear a suit, because I'm a director and I'm putting the whole thing together to amuse Kelsey. Lily is going to have some cookies and stuff out. Punch, tea, coffee, and water. That kind of thing. So it would definitely mean a dress. She had nothing else happening, and she would love to meet his coworkers. But, why was she so nervous about the whole thing? And why did she feel betrayed by him? How is using the ranch to shoot a television show going to change things? A commissary will be built for the cast and staff. There will also be a big parking lot built across the highway for the actors' trailers. A building will be built for the inside scenes, but all outdoor scenes will be filmed in the Old West town. We'll be allowed to shoot in the Old West town only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and all of the guests will be considered to be extras if they choose to be. It's all been worked out, so we'll have the least impact on the day-to-day business of the ranch. That's probably good. She took another bite of her pizza, watching him. Why do you want me there? He blinked at her. Because I have feelings for you, and I want you to meet all the people I love. Is that so hard to understand? He couldn't believe she'd even ask him that. She sighed. I guess I have to go, then. I'll figure out something to wear. Her idea of dressing up was wearing a pair of slacks for work. Her dress clothes never included a dress or a skirt. She wasn't fond of either, so she simply didn't wear them. She could see that this was something she'd have to make an exception for. I'd like to pick you up at 5, if I may? All of a sudden, Stephen felt like he needed to be formal with her. Their usual zing was missing, and he wasn't sure if it was because he'd talked to Jacqueline or because he hadn't told her the real reason he was there. I can't imagine going without you by my side. Michelle smiled at that. Then that's where I'll be. She took a sip of her water. To tell the truth, I'm looking forward to meeting the 4 main stars of the show. It'll be interesting to see what they're like in real life. Well, Jesse and Valerie, who play Dylan and Joe, are as much in love off-screen as they are on. Valerie was in a horrible relationship for years, and Jesse helped her get out of it. They really do belong together. I remember when we auditioned them for the parts. They were total strangers, but when they kissed at that audition, it was like 2 souls meant to be together were finding each other. I know that sounds sappy, but I think every single person in that studio felt that way. She grinned at him. Who would have thought you'd be such a softie? He shrugged. I wanted my stars happy, and trust me, I've never met a happier couple. It's like they were destined to be together, and both of them knew it the second they met. I think that's lovely. Hearing all that makes me really want to meet them. Am I right in thinking they have a child, too? Yes. His name is Jaron, and he's almost a year old. Sweet little boy. They'll bring him as well. I'm not sure how they'll handle that for the signing, but they'll have a plan. They always have a plan. We have a 24/7 child care here on the ranch. The kids' choral. Miranda's mother runs it, and it's amazing. All of the Westons leave their kids there, so you know it's good. I'll let them know. He glanced at the time on his phone. You know what? I need to call them now if you don't mind. There's a time difference, and I don't want to risk waking the baby, who goes to bed ridiculously early. Yeah, sure. She sat alone with her pizza while he walked off and made the call. Her mind wouldn't leave her alone, telling her he was only telling her now because she was sure to find out anyway. It was a sad feeling to have. She wanted him to be upfront with her about everything all the time. Relationships needed to have complete honesty, in her opinion. She had to wonder if he was even capable of it. There was certainly a huge difference between the lifestyle he was used to in California and the slow-paced life of Idaho. She was certain people here were more honest, and that's what she was used to. Chapter 7. Stephen left Michelle's house that night, a bit worried that she was upset with him over the whole thing. He knew she hadn't wanted him to talk to Jacqueline, and he sort of understood, but he was still pleased that he had. It wasn't like they were married and she had the right to control his every move. She wouldn't even if they were married. He sighed. He was just making excuses. He'd done something knowing it would displease her, and that hadn't been right. Hiding his true purpose at the ranch from her hadn't been good either. He'd just have to make sure that he was better to her from now on, so she would see. See what? What did he want her to see? That he was the only man in the world for her? Maybe. Maybe his problem was that she was annoyed, and he was already falling in love with her. How was he supposed to deal with that? He pulled up in front of the cabin where he was staying to find Jacqueline lurking with a different bunny on a leash. Sometimes you make me feel like I'm under surveillance. She laughed heartily. I promise I'm not with the FBI. I'm just a regular, old-fashioned woman who talks to fairies on a regular basis. Well, ask the fairies why she's upset with me, would you? Or better yet, because I'm pretty sure I know why, ask them how to get her to stop being upset with me. If he was frustrated enough to ask questions of the local fairy whisperer, he was even further gone than he realized. Jacqueline walked to him and patted his arm. She'll get over it. She knows you're the man for her, and it's just hard for her to come to grips with that. She's 33 years old and has always had her freedom. You're the man who can take it away from her, and she's scared. She's looking for reasons to break it off with you. Don't let her. But if she'd be happier without me, then shouldn't I just let her go? Jacqueline shook her head. Trust me when I say she would not be better off without you. I liked my freedom, and I spent too long asking the man I loved to wait just a little longer. The day I decided to accept his offer to marry me, he was killed in the line of duty. He was a police officer, you see. Jacqueline shrugged. I'm always surrounded by people I love. The fairies will never let me be lonely. When you meet that special someone you're meant to spend forever with, you can't give it up. Neither of you will be happier. She sighed. I know I'll never be able to replace him in my heart. Stephen frowned at her. He hadn't expected something so touching to be said by a woman walking a bunny. I'll think about what you said. Like he'd be able to think about anything else. Good. I don't want you to make a mistake that will ruin 2 lives simply because you're stubborn. I'm not stubborn. What was she talking about? Jacqueline just patted his arm and walked away toward her house. He frowned after her, shaking his head. The woman must have been put on this earth simply to drive him batty. There was no other explanation at all. Asterisk. When Stephen went to his appointment the next day, Michelle was even a bit more withdrawn than she'd been. I'm sorry, he said, not quite sure exactly what he was wrong about, but he was pretty sure that's what she needed to hear from him. You are? Michelle asked, narrowing her eyes. What exactly are you sorry for? She sighed. I'm not really angry with you. I'm just a bit confused about what I need to do next. She almost said she'd never been in love before, but he didn't need that little piece of information quite yet. Next, go to the party with me tomorrow night and have fun. What's so hard about that? Nothing, I guess. I just feel like you might not have the ability to be as honest as I need you to be. We're from very different worlds. Maybe we are, but that doesn't mean we can't meet in the middle. And I wasn't born and raised in California. He caught her chin and met her eyes. I'm willing to make the compromises that need to be made for the two of us to work things out. Getting to know each other a little better is the best first step, of course. And I badly want you to meet some of the people I care about this weekend. All right? Michelle nodded, feeling a bit sad and lost. She'd always been a competent woman who spent a lot of time training to be a strong business leader. Never had she expected a man to come along and knock her on her butt. I'll do my best. Good girl. Lunch? He asked as soon as his appointment was over. She nodded, but she did so less eagerly than before. He was worried that he'd ruined things completely, but he certainly hoped not. On their walk to the cafe, she walked a couple feet away from him, instead of right beside him as she had before. Just so you know, not everyone knows about the filming taking place on the ranch. I believe it's only the Weston family, and you, of course. Because you're very important to me. She looked at him for a moment. Are you sure I'm not just some vacation romance who you'll forget as soon as you go back to work? If I thought that was even a possibility, I wouldn't have tried to start anything with you. If I went back to work tomorrow, I'd never be able to get your big green eyes out of my mind. You're very special to me, Michelle, and I aim to prove it. I wish you could. Proving it very quickly would alleviate my mind a lot. I'm usually one of the most competent women around. I don't know what you're doing to me. Whatever it is, I promise you it's unintentional. As soon as they were seated, Kelsey hurried over with the menus. I can't believe they're really going to be here tomorrow. How did you do it? Stephen grinned at her, having no problem following her train of thought. They're my friends, and they know it will help me with my new project. What's so strange about that? Whatever the reason, I couldn't be more excited. I didn't sleep a wink last night, and for once, that wasn't because of two babies wanting to be held at the same time. Kelsey glanced over as new people came in. Special today is cheese enchiladas. They're not as good as mine, but they're not bad, considering they were made by a Bob. Stephen had learned his lesson. That's what I'm having. Me too. Michelle pushed her menu away. I want root beer today, too. It was a root beer kind of day. She wasn't a drinker, but she was always willing to drown her sorrows in a huge vat of root beer. Me too, he said. He reached out and took Michelle's hand in his as Kelsey walked away. I'm sorry that I'm making your day rough. I only want what's best for you. And you think you're what's best for me? He shrugged. I think I could be if you'd let me. Don't shut me out, because I couldn't tell you something. If you had a patient come see you and they told you something confidential, would you tell me? Well, no, I couldn't, but... Yeah, see, that's how I felt. It was something I promised my partners I'd keep quiet until we had a signed contract. We have one now. She sighed. I guess that makes sense. It just feels so strange that you couldn't tell me the truth right away. It almost hurt when I found out that you hadn't been upfront. That and the whole Jacqueline thing. The Jacqueline thing is something I still don't feel like I did wrong on. I know you didn't want me to talk to her, but I half thought you were kidding. And she reminds me so much of my grandmother, I couldn't stay away. I'd do that again tomorrow. She frowned. I guess that makes sense. I don't really have the right to ask you not to talk to people, I just felt uncomfortable with it. He looked into her eyes. Can we get past this? Yeah. We can get past it. So I'll see you this evening. Nope. I have to figure out what I'm wearing to your big thing tomorrow night. He grinned. Because you're going as my date to meet my friends and declare to the whole world that the fairies are with us? Don't get sucked into the fairy madness. Michelle couldn't help but grin. The whole ranch was nuts over fairies, and she didn't need him to be part of that, but it was cute that he was thinking about it. But it's so fun. I can't wait to introduce Bob to Jacqueline. She's going to freak him out majorly. Michelle laughed, shaking her head. Is he super uptight? I wouldn't say uptight, he just doesn't like a lot of weird stuff. May has changed him a lot, though. In what way? Stephen shook his head. It's hard to put my finger on, but he's more laid back. Easier to joke with. His whole face lights up whenever he looks at her. Kind of amazes me sometimes. That's really cool. I can't wait to meet both of them. Michelle found she really was looking forward to meeting them, not because they were stars of the television show she was starting to like, but because they were his friends and they would have some insight into him. After lunch, they went their separate ways, and he called Lily to make sure everything was coming along well. After that call was managed, he made his way over to see Jacqueline. Instead of talking to her about the fairies, he shoveled her front walk, assuring her that he was fine to do so. I'm not in pain, so I can handle it with no problem. Dr. Michelle just wants to keep seeing me because she's smitten. Jacqueline laughed from her vantage point on the steps, where she had 3 bunnies hopping around her and another on her lap. Smitten? Is that word even used anymore? Mind you, I like it, but that's because I'm as old as dirt. He put the shovel in the snow and leaned on it, looking at her. Still look beautiful to me, Jacqueline. Don't be wasting your sweet words on me. My heart was buried long before you were born. Waste of a beautiful woman. Does that mean you're going to let me be an extra on the television show of yours? She asked. He couldn't help but grin at that. Do you want to be? Why not? I've got some moments of craziness left in me. I can see that. No doubt in my mind. When you're done with that, will you take out my trash and help me with the litter box? She asked. He grinned. Are you trying to take advantage of my helpfulness? Of course I am. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. When he was finished with all the chores Jacqueline had for him, Stephen walked toward the old west town. There was something about the place that drew him, and he couldn't seem to stay away. He went into the bakery and bought a cookie and a bottle of water from Miranda. Are you baking for the big party tomorrow night? He asked. She nodded. I'm going to be there, too. Love the show. I'm glad. I'll introduce you to the stars if you'd like. Will they be mingling with us lesser people, or just sitting behind tables to sign stuff? Miranda asked. I'll make sure they do a little of both. Oh, good. I can't wait. He paid and left the little bakery, walking toward the infirmary to thank Bridget for her help. When he got there, he found her in the back alone. Just came to say thank you for your help. Bridget grinned at him. Looks like Dr. Michelle fixed you up pretty well. He nodded. She did. She's pretty fabulous, even if she is a quack. Bridget laughed. Don't tell her she's a quack. Then she'll let your back rot off you. The door opened behind him and a tall blonde walked in. Midget. Did you hear? My friend May is going to be here tomorrow. Along with her Bob, who I haven't even met yet. Stephen studied the newcomer for a moment. Are you Kaya? She nodded. I am. Who are you? He held his hand out. We've spoken on the phone. I'm Stephen Pickman. Kaya looked at him for a moment before a smile spread across her face. You're making my book into a television series. He nodded. That's why I'm at the ranch. I've signed a contract with Weston to film the pilot here starting next month. Then you're the one bringing May and the others here, right? It was a stipulation of the contract. Kaya threw back her head and laughed. Kelsey. Yes. She certainly knows what she wants, And meeting all the stars of the show is all she wants out of life, apparently. So I'm bringing them here so she can meet them. I think that's awesome. Kaya looked at Bridget. And you know my sister? Yeah, she helped me after I fell off the mountain. Stephen blinked a couple of times. Didn't I hear you two are twins? There are no two people who look less like twins. Kaya grinned at that. Ignore the hair and the height and just look at our faces. His eyes widened. I do see it. You look a lot alike. It's just unnerving how much taller you are. I'm more than a foot taller than Midget here, but I am older by a whole 5 minutes. I'm glad to finally meet you. We'll need to sit down for a bit while I'm here and talk about some specifics. I have some changes in mind for the show, and I want to talk about the stars I want to bring in for it. Sounds good. When do you leave? Monday. Could we meet up Monday morning? I should have contacted you before, but I've been a bit distracted since I got here. He fell off the mountain, Bridget interjected. And from the rumors I'm hearing, he's got something going with Dr. Michelle. Stephen felt the heat rise into his face. Blushing? He was 34 years old and had been working in the film industry for 10 years. He couldn't blush in front of people. I refused to answer that. Kaya grinned. I'll ask her myself. I have an appointment in a few minutes. She headed toward the door. Bridget, you have to go tomorrow night. And no Cinderella talk. People already think you're nuts. Go away, Kaya. Bridget called after her sister. Cinderella talk? Stephen asked after Kaya was gone. Oh, I like to ask people who their favorite Disney princess is, because mine's Cinderella, but I haven't even done that for a couple of days. Kaya likes to think of me how I used to be. He laughed at that. You too gave your mother a run for her money, didn't you? Mom always says there's a reason she never had any more. I can see that. He headed toward the door. I want to go and check out the saloon, and then I have a few more phone calls to make. I need to make sure my people are settled happily before the event tomorrow. See ya. Bridget waved to him and went back to playing Yahtzee on her phone. She was addicted, and she wasn't even ashamed of it. Stephen walked toward the saloon, having heard wonderful things about the coffee Sadie offered there. He opened the door and went in, sitting on a bar stool. I want to pound my fist on the counter and ask for a sarsaparilla, but I think I'll just have a caramel latte instead. A woman walked toward him with a smile. I'll get it for you right away. You want that for here, or to go? Oh, to go, I think. I've been having fun wandering around the ranch. It's a beautiful place, isn't it? She pulled some levers on a machine in front of her. Have you heard the cast of Lazy Love is signing autographs tomorrow night? I'm pretty excited, I have to admit. I'm one of the directors of the show, and I arranged for them to be here. I'm Stephen Pickman. Oh, that's exciting. Why are you having them all come? That's the one thing I didn't understand. I needed something from the ranch, and to get the Westons to sign a contract, I had to agree to bring them here. Kelsey? Sadie asked. Does everyone know about her obsession with the show? You're like the fourth person who's automatically asked if it was Kelsey. Yeah, Kelsey doesn't hide a whole lot. I'm seriously still trying to figure out how she hid the fact she was having twins until she went into labor. Big surprise from someone like Kelsey. I like her. She's waited on my table several times. Enjoying Bob's cooking? She asked. More than I could ever express. I'm ready to pack up and move to Idaho, just so I can eat at the diner every day. She laughed, handing him his drink. Well, I'm not sure that's the answer, but I wouldn't blame you. I'll see you at the party tomorrow. I'll be there. Chapter 8. Kaya rushed into the chiropractic office as Michelle was finishing up notes on her previous patient. Hi. How are you feeling today? Anything new? Instead of answering, Kaya hurried to her and hugged her. Lazy Love is coming to the ranch. Michelle laughed. I know that. I know you know. Bridget says you're dating Steven, and he's producing my book. Or he's producing the TV series based on my book. Yeah, that makes more sense. Michelle shrugged. I don't know if dating is the right word for it. We're seeing each other a lot, though. Tell me about it. Let's get you adjusted, and then we'll talk. I might even beg you to go shopping with me this evening. I need a dress to wear to that thing, because I'm going as his date, and he's wearing a suit, and I don't wear dresses. I would love to go shopping with you. Who's a better person to shop with, a tall, lanky woman than another tall, lanky woman? We'll find you something in green to match your eyes. I can't wait to see you look beautiful. Michelle grinned. Are you saying I'm not already beautiful? I'm a writer. I refuse to let you use my own tools against me. Kaya smiled at her friend. When do you close? You're my last patient. Then I'm going to call Glenn, and we're going to Lewiston. There's got to be a gorgeous dress with your name on it there. Michelle fought with herself for a moment. Money wasn't the issue. She just didn't want to have to change for a man. But wearing a dress one night wasn't really changing for him, was it? She sighed heavily. Yeah, call Glenn. We'll take my car, and we'll find some amazing food to eat while we're gone, because I need amazing food. They left minutes later, taking Michelle's car. It wasn't meant for the Idaho roads in winter, but she didn't care at the moment. They hadn't had a snowfall in a couple of days, and the roads should be clear. While they drove, Kaya peppered her with questions about Steven, and Michelle did her best not to answer them. Why don't you ask him all this? Michelle finally asked. I haven't known him very long. You love him, don't you? Kaya asked, her voice softer and more serious than it had been all day. Michelle shrugged. What does it matter if I do? He's here for a vacation, and he's going home on Monday. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And who says you can't go with him when he leaves? I came here on vacation, and came back a couple of weeks later as Glenn's wife. This place has made more romances than I can count, and all of them seem to be happy marriages. There's something special about the ranch. The Weston should have called it Romance Ranch, not River's End. Michelle smiled. Maybe. I just don't know what to do at the moment, so I'm trying not to let my heart get too involved. Too late. Yeah, it probably is too late. But I want to be happy, and rein myself in just a little. I worry that he's going to leave and take my heart with him. And what good would I be if I were heartless? True. Kaya stared at the road in front of her. But I think you need to give him a chance. Let your heart be open to him. There's no point in closing yourself off. I'm not. I'm shopping for a dress, aren't I? Michelle didn't know what else she was supposed to do. Shopping for a dress for a man seemed like the ultimate sacrifice to her. Kaya obviously realized she needed to change the subject. So, what do you want for supper? I'm in the mood for Mexican. I'm always in the mood for Mexican. Asterisk. It was dark early in January, and the night seemed to drag. Steven tried watching some old movies, but he couldn't seem to get into any of them. This was the first evening since he'd met Michelle that they hadn't spent together. Normally he had no problem with his own company, but he really missed her, which seemed odd with as short a time as they'd known one another. How had she already come to fill up his every thought? He read for a while and went to bed early, Michelle's face on the back of his eyelids. Asterisk. Michelle met Steven at the cafe the following day for lunch. Her office was closed for the weekend, and she was too nervous about the event that night to think about patients anyway. It was strange how uncomfortable a formal event made her feel. When he saw her walking toward him, he hurried toward her, pulling her to him and kissing her softly. Last night felt like an eternity. I can't believe how used to having you around I've become. Really? Went by fast for me. She loved teasing him. For some reason, his admission made her feel like they were on more even footing. Did you find what you were looking for? She shrugged. I think so. I hope you're all right if I don't look like a movie star. I will do my best to look like a dressed-up chiropractor. Works for me. I can't wait to introduce you to my friends. They should be getting to the ranch in about 2 hours. Frank is picking them up in Lewiston. Am I meeting you at the event barn? She asked, hoping she was. Then she could slip out early if she was too uncomfortable. She was an introvert through and through, and the evening was downright frightening to her. Would you be willing to meet me at my cabin instead? I'd like you to meet my friends before the event. But that means I have to wear a dress longer. He laughed. You can handle it. I promise. She groaned but nodded. I'll be there. What time? 4? She felt a moment of panic at his words. They wouldn't be finished eating until 1 or 2, and she had a lot to do to get ready. She wasn't used to being all girly. I can do that. I promise you're going to like them, and it'll be worth every minute of your time. I hope so. Kelsey was floating around the cafe, obviously excited about the evening. I'm putting the twins in the kids' choral. I haven't had a Saturday out in a million years, and I'm going to enjoy every single second of it. Michelle grinned. I'm glad you're so excited. Are there going to be photo opportunities? Kelsey looked at Stephen. I didn't even think of that. What about photo ops, Stephen? Sure. I can make that happen. Stephen knew he was going to owe his friends big time at the end of the night, but they would be good sports about everything. That's the kind of friends they were. Kelsey clapped a couple of times. I'm going to remember this night for the rest of my life. After she was gone, Stephen took Michelle's hand. I'm going to remember this night for the rest of my life, too. It'll be the first night I ever see you dressed up. And the last, she mumbled under her breath. He laughed. I'm not so sure about that. I have lots of award shows and stuff I'm required to attend. Yes, but you're a director-producer person. I'm just a chiropractor. I fix broken people. But you'll come with me if I beg, won't you? He couldn't imagine not having his wife attend things with him. As soon as the words flitted through his mind, he knew that she needed to be his bride. But he couldn't imagine that she'd agree on such a short acquaintance. He had to try, though. For both of their sakes. Asterisk. Michelle spent the afternoon getting ready for her evening with Stephen. She didn't care what his friends thought of her. She just wanted to not embarrass him. After showering and fixing her long auburn hair, she dressed in the forest green, slim-skirted gown that she and Kaya had chosen for her. She looked at herself in the mirror and almost took it off again. How could she have thought she could pull this off? She felt like a little girl playing dress-up in her mother's closet. She'd not gone to prom or any other big dance at school. Dressing up wasn't something she'd ever enjoyed or wanted to do, so she simply hadn't bothered. Closing her eyes, she forced her breathing to calm. She could make it through this. Who would have thought someone as confident as she was would have a panic attack at the idea of being around strangers all night while wearing a dress? What was wrong with her? She fixed her makeup carefully, putting some into her purse for a touch-up should she need it as the night wore on. Slipping her feet into comfortable flats, she walked out to the car through the falling snow. She wanted to curse the snow, but what good would that do? At least everyone would have had to go through snow the same as her to get to the party. When she arrived at Stephen's cabin at just before 4, She sat in her car for a moment, staring at the house. Surely no one wanted her to be there early. She should turn around and go back home and show up for the party like a normal person. Just as she decided she should do just that, Steven stepped outside, looking sexy as anything she'd ever seen. He wore a black tuxedo and a black tie. She stared at him, swallowing hard. Was he really her date for the night? He walked to her car and opened the door for her. You were about to go home, weren't you? She shrugged. I would have gone to the party. I promise. Well, you're coming inside to meet my friends. I made supper. She got out of the car and nodded, feeling totally out of place, and then she looked at his face and saw the appreciation in his eyes. Do you have any idea how very beautiful you look this evening? I feel like I'm a little girl playing dress-up in her mother's closet, but I never did that. I was too busy playing football outside with the boys. Or practicing gymnastics. I didn't have time for that nonsense. Well, you certainly don't look like a little girl playing dress-up. You look like the strong, confident, beautiful woman I know you are. Come meet my friends. He offered his arm, and she took it, still feeling very out of place, but thankful that he was beside her as she walked into a house full of people she didn't know. As soon as she stepped inside, the girl that played Jo, Valerie was her name, came up to her. You must be Michelle. I've heard wonderful things about you. Michelle was surprised when Valerie hugged her as if she was an old friend, but she was a hugger, so she happily hugged back. And you're Valerie. I've been watching the show with Steven. She leaned forward and said in a dramatic stage whisper. I wasn't a fan until he made me start from the beginning. Valerie laughed. I'm so glad he made you start from the beginning, then, because we need you as a fan. She waved a man forward, who was holding a little boy who looked to be right at a year old. This is my husband Jesse, and our son, Jaron. Michelle nodded, smiling. Hi, Jesse. She was much more comfortable with children than she was with adults, so when Jaron leaned toward her, she had no problem holding him. Hello, Jaron. I'm Michelle. Jaron simply stuck 2 fingers in his mouth and sucked on them as he studied her. Michelle laughed, looking at Valerie. He's beautiful. Thank you. I made him myself. He looks just like his father, which isn't fair. He didn't go through the pain of having him. Valerie shrugged. It's a good thing I love my husband and think he's terribly handsome, isn't it? It is. Michelle felt her gaze going to Steven as she wondered what their children would look like. Valerie moved closer, dropping her voice so no one could hear. You love him. It's plain on your face. He's a good man. Glad to hear it. It seems like it, but I've only known him since Monday. That's not long enough to be sure of anything. Trust me. Valerie took Jaron and stepped back. He put his head on her shoulder happily. You need to come meet May and Amber. You're going to love them. They're the sisters of my heart. I have a sister, but I don't get to see her as often as I like. Valerie led Michelle across the room to 2 women who were sitting together. One was a bit overweight, and obviously not from the show. She was bouncing a little girl on her knee. May, this is Michelle, Steven's girl. Michelle, this is May, otherwise known as Jolene Gold. Michelle frowned. Jolene Gold sounds familiar, wait. I've read some of your books. May smiled. I hope you enjoyed them. Enough to look for more of them. It's good to meet you. You too. I hear Steven fell off a mountain, and you're the one who fixed him. Very appreciated. May jiggled the baby on her lap. This is Bobette, but I call her Bobby. Interesting choice of names. Michelle wondered how May would respond to that. I named so many people in books that I just couldn't name another human being, so I gave Bob carte blanche. It's a different name, but she's a special little girl, and she'll do just fine with it. Michelle nodded. I think she will. Valerie touched Michelle's arm. This is Amber. She plays Mary Beth on the show. She gestured across the room. All of our men are over there hanging out, but you don't want to meet them anyway. Except Bob, May said very seriously. Life would never be the same without Bob. Michelle grinned, nodding toward Amber. It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, too. And this is my little girl, Nikki. Nikki looked at Michelle. Do you like to play Barbies? Michelle sat down so she was eye level with the girl. I haven't played Barbies in a whole lot of years, but I bet I'd like it just as much as I did when I was a little girl. Did you bring any Barbies with you? Nikki nodded solemnly. I did. But Mama made me leave them in our cabin. Do you want to come to our cabin to play Barbies? I would honestly love to. Michelle wasn't as uncomfortable as she'd thought she would be, but she still would give just about anything to escape for a few minutes. Amber shook her head. It's not a good time to play Barbies. Sorry, Nikki. Nikki frowned. But I get to go to the kids' place and not go to the dress-up party, right? Right. Michelle noticed that Nikki was in jeans and a sweatshirt while all the adult women were dressed in formal dresses. Michelle looked at May. How do you make it through these things? May shrugged. I swallow my introvert and pretend to be happy where I am. It's not easy. Do you do a lot of book signings? As few as I can possibly get away with. I do what's expected of me, and very little more. I find that it's easier for me if I do the public appearances with Bob, and I keep my own to an absolute minimum. May sighed. I wish I could be happy in front of a camera, but I never have been, and I doubt I ever will be. I think we have that very much in common. I deal with people all day long when they come into my office, but usually on my lunch break, I go to lunch alone and just sit there and de-stress. Sometimes I even eat in my office, just so I don't have to look at people. I understand completely. May grinned at her. Friends and introversion. Definitely. Kaya and I went shopping last night, and she told me a lot about you. She's very excited you're here. I'm excited to see her, too. We've been writing friends for years. We both tend to write through the night and sleep during the day. Thank heavens for nannies. Michelle grinned. Did you bring your nanny? May shook her head. No, I gave her the weekend off. We'll use the childcare here on the ranch for the event, and I'll take care of her the rest of the time. That's probably for the best. It definitely is. She misses her mommy time when I'm working a lot, like I have been lately. I need to cut down, and I say I will every year, and every year, I don't. I don't know what my problem is. Too many stories in your head that have to go onto a computer or you'll lose your mind? That's probably exactly what it is. May laughed. You must know Kaya pretty well if you know that's how a writer's mind works. She comes to see me every week like clockwork. We're doing what we can to keep her carpal tunnel at bay. I'm amazed at how hard she works. May nodded. She's a very hard worker. That's why we're good writing partners. I'm glad you two are going to get to see each other tonight. It should be fun for both of you. Michelle leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs. She watched the others talk and tried to sink back into the background. She liked his friends, and she was glad she got to meet them. Now she wanted to go home and put her Michelle clothes back on. Chapter 9. By the time they headed to the party at the event barn, Michelle felt more comfortable with the people around her. Michelle and Stephen drove over together, while the other three couples took their children to the kids' choral, which had been notified that they would have some extras dropping in that evening. How do you like my friends? He asked as soon as they were alone. I really do. They seem very down to earth, even though they're famous. Well, John isn't famous, but he's the only one of the 6 who isn't. Imagine what it would be like for him to run in those circles. He seems like a good guy. He's got to feel a bit intimidated, though. Michelle parked the car in the huge parking lot beside the event barn. May doesn't seem to realize she's famous. Well, none of the ladies really did, but May was as laid back as a person could be. Yeah, she's easy to be friends with, he said softly. Are you ready for this? She shrugged. I feel out of place, which I've said a million times, but I'll make it work. I've never done anything that was this dressy in my life, so I feel a little weird, but whatever. He leaned toward her, planning to kiss her. You'll be the most beautiful woman there. You can't kiss me. You're going to smear my lipstick. He frowned. Don't you have more? I didn't think about that. Yeah, go for it. She caught the back of his head and pulled him to her for a kiss. I needed that. He laughed. I did, too. Let's get in there. Party officially starts in 10 minutes, and I'm the host, so I need to get in there and make sure everything is right. And you can go fix your lipstick. She got out of the car, still feeling silly, but pushing on. At least she knew most of the people in the area. She didn't know why that made it easier, but it did. Side by side with Stephen, she walked into the building, looking around at the arrangements that had been made. She was always impressed when Lily worked her magic. The event barn had looked like a dozen different places for different events. She hurried to the bathroom and fixed her lipstick before going back out into the main room to walk back to Stephen. She hoped he'd have time for her, so she wasn't left standing around looking like a wallflower. Stephen was making sure the spots for his 4 stars were good. They all had bottles of water at their spots, and they could easily get some of the snack foods that circled the room. What do you think? She asked. He shrugged. Looks good. Everything I asked for has been included. I'll make sure the stars are seated before anyone else comes in. We've decided to do an hour of autographs, an hour of mingling, and an hour of pictures with the stars. Hopefully that will make Kelsey happy. Michelle laughed. Just being in the room with them will make her happy. Don't let her ask for any of their used napkins as they come into the room, all right? Stephen shook his head. They've all heard it before. Yeah, but it's still got to be creepy. Oh, it is. The 3 couples came in then, Jesse leading the way with Valerie. How's this going to go? Stephen nodded to the table. The 4 of you will start out behind the table, signing autographs for an hour, then mingling for an hour, and then photographs with anyone who wants them for an hour. That work for all of you? Jesse nodded, leading Valerie behind the table and sitting down with her. Amber and Bob took their places. Okay, we're protected by this flimsy table, Jesse said. I guess we should let them in. Stephen frowned. I didn't think about security for this event. Are you worried? Jesse shook his head. Just joking. We're going to be fine. After Valerie's sister's kidnapping almost 2 years before, Stephen had a hard time joking about security. All right. I'm going to let Lily, the lovely lady who put this event together, know that you're ready. Michelle wondered what she was supposed to do next, but she drifted over toward May. I feel completely out of place. You? I'd rather be in a dark room with my fingers on my keyboard. I wouldn't mind coming to these events if I was allowed to just observe and turn people into book characters. Having to actually talk to people like I'm happy to be here is a lot harder for me. I think we're going to get along very well. If you meet out, let me know. You fake a back injury, and I'll take you to my office for a few minutes. May laughed. I hope it won't come to that, but if it does, I'm going to be ready. Me, too. Michelle watched as they opened the main doors to the event barn, and people started swarming inside. Obviously, word had gotten out about the Lazy Love stars being there, because this was the biggest crowd she'd ever seen at the barn. Even the weddings she'd been to hadn't been quite as large. Kelsey was one of the first people to walk up to the table, and watching her reaction warmed Michelle's heart. As soon as she was within 5 feet of the tables, tears started streaming. "I can't believe you're actually here, so I get to meet you. This is amazing." Shane put his arm around her and led her to the table. "This is my wife, Kelsey Clapper. She's the one who came up with the ridiculous provision that the 4 of you needed to come here, because she wanted to meet all of you." Valerie smiled. "I wondered if it was you." She pulled a headshot of herself toward her and took the cap off the Sharpie beside her. "How do you spell your name?" Kelsey spelled it, and then she walked closer. "I've loved your show since the first episode. I'm totally addicted, and I have most of them memorized." Shane nodded. "She's not kidding. I was required to watch the show with her while we were dating." "It's great to meet such a big fan," Valerie said, handing her the photograph. "Make sure to come and do a picture with us during the last hour of the party." "Oh, I will," Kelsey said. She walked down the line, talking to all the stars, her face so happy. When she finished, she spotted Michelle and hurried over. "I can't believe they're really here." Michelle laughed. "Well, you did make it a stipulation of the ranch being used for Steven's next project. I don't think anyone felt like they had a choice." Kelsey shrugged. "I brought more income to the ranch and made people in the whole area happy with that idea. It was brilliant, wasn't it?" "Sure was." "I'm glad you did it, Kelsey." Michelle was thrilled that Kelsey was so unbelievably happy to meet people she'd idolized for years. It was fun to watch her. "Have you met Bob Bodefeld's wife, May?" Kelsey nodded. "I actually met her before she was Bob's wife." "Jolene Gold, right?" May nodded. "I met Bob about a week after I left the ranch." She leaned forward and whispered, and I did my best not to fangirl all over him. "I'm one of the founding members of Team Bob." "I had no idea. Why didn't we talk lazy love for hours upon hours while you were here before?" Kelsey asked. "Because I was here for a writing retreat with Kaya and Liz. Kaya met Glenn that week, but all of us were writing as fast as we could to finish up books." "Ah, well, that makes sense. I'm going to go see what looks yummy." Shane nodded to Michelle and May as he was pulled away by his exuberant little wife. "I guess she's happy," Michelle said with a grin. "Is she really the reason we're all here?" "Yes. She is the youngest of the 6 Weston siblings who own the ranch. When the opportunity arose, she made sure she'd get to meet the people she wanted to meet." Michelle shrugged. "Kelsey's more than a little eccentric, but we all love her. She seems like a fun person." May's eyes caught someone across the room. "Excuse me. There's someone I have to hug." Michelle smiled and nodded, watching as May made her way across the room to Kaya and hugged her tight. Both women walked back to her. "We couldn't leave you to Wallflower alone," May told Michelle. "Thank you. I appreciate it more than you know." Kaya smiled. "You look wonderful in your new dress. I can't believe we found something that gorgeous and perfect for you in one evening. I'm so glad we did. I feel out of place wearing this. Imagine how I would have felt if I hadn't had something glamorous to wear." Michelle looked over her shoulder when she felt a warm hand on her bare back. "Hi, you." Stephen grinned, handing her a cup of punch. "It's pretty good." Michelle took it and drank it down greedily. It was amazing how thirsty being nervous made her. "Thank you." "You're very welcome." He looked around the room. "Are you all right?" "I'm playing host, but you can come right along with me." "Do you need me?" she asked. "I'm talking with May and Kaya, but they'll be happy to get rid of me." "I would like to introduce you to some people I know," he said. She looked around and realized that it wasn't only locals there. There were other people dressed to the nines whom she'd never seen before. Looking to May and Kaya, she said, "I'll see you both later. Thanks for wallflowering with me." "Happy to do it," Kaya said, hugging her quickly. "Just remember you're a beautiful, competent, intelligent woman, and you'll be just fine." Michelle nodded at the whispered words. "See you soon, I hope." For the next 30 minutes, Michelle was introduced to many of Stephen's co-conspirators on his project. They were all excited that he'd secured the ranch as a place to film. She smiled and acted polite for each one, but she was very intimidated by all of them. When he'd finally finished introducing her around, he smiled. "You did great. I didn't let them see me sweat." Michelle grinned at him, and he found himself lost in her eyes. "I need to go play host some more. Do you want to stay with me, or go back to your wallflowers? Isn't this part of the night almost over? I have a feeling my wallflowers are going to go back to their husbands, and I'll be all alone. Me against the big bad world." She laid the back of her wrist across her forehead dramatically. "You planning on trying out for a part in an upcoming movie? You'd make a great fainting lady." Michelle made a face at him. "No, but I'm going to stick to your side like someone used superglue on us both." I think I like that idea." "Sounds great to me." He walked over toward the stars to let them up from signing autographs. They were sitting quietly anyway, because everyone had finished. "You guys ready to mingle and look happy to be here?" Valerie shrugged. "I am happy to be here. It's a nice place." The next hour whizzed by for Michelle, because she enjoyed talking to the stars when there were no other people crowded around them. Kelsey became her best friend and stood beside her. She didn't have a lot to say to the stars, but she soaked up every word they spoke. As people took their pictures with the stars, they gradually left the building, and in the end, it was only the stars, May, Stephen, Michelle, Kaya, and Kelsey left, along with the staff. Stephen let out a breath as the last person who wasn't part of the core group left the building. "I think that went really well," Stephen said. "It was good to get the other people involved with producing the show here. They've been auditioning people in California. We'll be ready to start shooting February 1st. Kelsey clapped her hands together. "Another show for me to love." "You have to love the one about your family," Kaya said with a grin. "That's true. I'm just excited that I'll be able to watch it from the beginning and recognize everything. It's going to be fun." May smiled. "It will be fun. But I have a little Bobby who is hanging out at the kids' choral who needs her sleep. And I need to feed her before I explode." Kelsey nodded. "I have twins there right now, and I should feed them soon, too." "How old are your twins?" May asked. 10 months, 10 and a half, to be technical. I'm a twin, and it freaked me out a bit when I found out I was having twins, but my twins are fraternal. Danny and I are identical." Shane waved at Kelsey from across the room. "My sheriff husband is being all forceful about me leaving. I guess I should listen to him for a change." Kaya and Michelle laughed as Kelsey wandered off toward Shane. "I need to get home, too. Glenn stayed at the ranch to do paperwork tonight, so I'm off to spend a little time with him before he sleeps, and I need to start writing for the night." She hugged May. "I will see you in the chat room. I miss our lunches." "I do too. But I don't know how much time either of us would have now. We have demanding husbands." "Hey. Who are you calling demanding?" Bob asked, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. May grinned at him, and Michelle felt her stomach clench. She wanted what they had. All of the stars had obviously found the loves of their lives. Watching them together tonight had been eye-opening. She'd been convinced that no one could work in the film industry and be faithful, but these people truly loved each other. When Michelle and Steven said goodbye to the others and she drove him back to his cabin, she felt a burning inside her. She wanted what all his friends had. She wanted the kind of love all the people on the ranch had. She loved Steven the way the others loved each other, but could he love her the same way? She stopped the car in front of his house, turning to him. I had a lovely time. It wasn't easy for me, but I think I could do this again. You do? Steven was excited. Did that mean she was saying she was ready to fit into his life? She nodded. It was hard. I won't deny that, but wearing a dress didn't kill me, and I enjoyed a few of the people I got to meet. A few? He laughed. You're never going to mince words with me, are you? She shrugged, a grin on her lips. At least you'll always know where you stand with me. I will. He traced her lips with his forefinger, smiling at her. Do you want to come in and watch an episode of our show? I think it would be a lot of fun for you to watch the show now, with them all still fresh in your mind. Michelle thought about it for a moment and nodded. You know, that does sound interesting. And it meant she'd have at least another hour with him. Their time together was coming to an end because he left in less than 48 hours, and she wanted to take advantage of every minute she could. Let's go, then. He was thrilled she wasn't ready to hurry off and stare at walls, which was what May always said she did after an event. May needed to be in a room alone and stare at walls for a few minutes so she could calm herself and be ready to be with other people again. She settled onto the couch while he got them both glasses of ice water. When he came around to join her, he handed her a glass and sank down close beside her. How are you feeling today? I can't believe I haven't asked that. What kind of doctor am I? Steven smiled. I'm mostly better. There's a little lingering pain, but I think I'm just sore. I'll be all right. Did it hurt you walking around as much as you had to tonight? He shook his head. No more than anything else hurts. I'm not going to let falling off a mountain get me down. She laughed. Please don't fall off a mountain again. He reached for the remote, finding the next episode and starting it. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. She wished they could stay that way forever instead of him leaving. Why did the people that mattered always have to leave? Steven wrapped his arm around her, feeling the pressure of their time together ending. He couldn't leave without some kind of understanding between them, but would she be willing to even discuss a long-term relationship? He had no idea, but before Sunday was over, he had to find out. There was no way he could leave without at least trying. Chapter 10. Michelle woke early the following morning, well aware that it was her last day with Steven. They'd agreed to meet at his cabin, because the actors were leaving that afternoon. She wanted to have a chance to say goodbye. He'd said he'd cook breakfast for everyone, and she'd agreed to stop at the store on her way out to the ranch. When she got to his cabin, Bob, Jesse, and John came out to help her carry her things in. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and she realized that Steven had never seen her dressed so casually. Hopefully he wouldn't be disappointed in her. Today she was just Michelle. Not Dr. Michelle. Not his date for the big party. She was simply herself. Hopefully he'd like her in normal mode. Bob, Jesse, and John carried in the groceries, and Michelle wandered in after them. I could have carried a couple of bags myself. Why would you when there are gentlemen around? Jesse asked her, setting his bags onto the counter. Nikki hurried over to her. Now can we play Barbies? I talked Mama into letting me bring them over from my cabin. Michelle grinned. I would love to. Yay. Mama plays with me sometimes, but she works a lot and doesn't have much time to sit around playing with my dolls. I can see that. I work a lot, too, but this morning, I have time to play for a while. Michelle followed Nikki into the living room, looking at her array of Barbies. There were 2 Kens and 8 Barbies, which Michelle felt was probably unfair to the females, but obviously Nikki didn't mind it. Which one do I get to play with? Nikki thought hard and finally handed Michelle one Ken and one Barbie. I think those two should have a wedding. All right. Michelle looked through the clothes all over the floor, and she had to wonder how much extra her parents had paid to bring along all of her Barbie things so she'd have something to play with. You have a lot of Barbie stuff. I have more at home, but Mama said I couldn't bring anything but the car and clothes. I think they should have their camper to stay here, but I wasn't allowed. Maybe someday you'll visit me in Texas, and you can play with my fun stuff. Michelle grinned at the offer. I'd like that a lot. Me too. Nikki proceeded to start shoving the 6 dolls in her possession into dresses for the wedding, while Michelle had to fight just one Barbie into a wedding dress. She'd forgotten how hard they were to dress. When it was time for breakfast, Michelle was happy to finally get off the floor. She was very flexible and could sit on the floor longer than most adults, but it still wasn't her preferred place to be. Stephen had made pancakes, scrambled eggs, and bacon, and he'd provided cheese and tortillas for anyone who wanted to make the breakfast into breakfast burritos. The group was big and noisy as they all ate together, but Michelle realized she felt perfectly at home with these people. After breakfast, they all sat around and talked for a bit, and Michelle enjoyed getting to know them all a bit more informally. When Stephen sat beside her on the couch and wrapped his arm around her shoulders, no one even batted an eye. She realized that everyone was accepting them as a couple. No one thought a thing of them being together. Once everyone else had left to go and pack, Michelle rolled up the sleeves of her long-sleeved t-shirt and walked into the kitchen. Let's knock out these dishes before they come back. He shook his head. You don't have to help. I'll do it. You cooked while I played Barbies. It's the least I can do to help you get it all cleaned up. She ran a sink full of water and started washing, and he picked up a towel and dried. I'm leaving shortly after lunch tomorrow, he said softly. I hate that it's already time for you to go. She was going to be lost without him, but she didn't tell him that. Guilting him into staying wouldn't make either of them happy. Me too. I'd done what I set out to accomplish here on the ranch, but I never dreamed I'd find you here. She nodded, not looking at him as a tear drifted down her face. And I never thought Bridget would bring me a man I'd fall for. The love of her life. She could think the words, even if she couldn't say them aloud. Would you mind if I came back to visit you? He asked, trying to ease into the real conversation he wanted to have. Well, I'm sure you're going to be on and off the ranch for the show. That's not what I mean. I want to come here specifically to see you. I don't want to just come here to do the work I need to do. He held his breath as he waited for an answer, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. He'd never had a relationship that had meant a lot to him before, but she meant the whole world. The door opened then as Jessie and Valerie came back with little Jaren. I can help with the dishes, Valerie offered. You cooked, Stephen. You shouldn't have to clean up. Michelle wasn't sure if she was happy with the interruption or not. There'd been a lot to talk about, and they needed to discuss it, but she wasn't sure how she was going to be able to answer his question. Was it best to prolong the heartbreak? Or should there be a good clean break now to avoid that later? Valerie happily dried the dishes, talking a bit about how much she loved the ranch. You need to come out to Wyoming where we live now. Every time we have a break on the show, we fly there. It's a small town, and we just love the community. My sister lives there too. Stephen had filled Michelle in a little on what had happened to her sister. How's she doing? Really well. She married a pastor a little over a year ago. He's been wonderful for her. They really do belong together. I'm so glad. Stephen told me what happened to her, and you, and I worried there were lasting scars. Valerie frowned. I think she'll always have scars. My part in it was short, and Jessie was there to help me within minutes. She was tied up for a couple of days. It was awful. I'm so sorry. What happened to the guy? He's in prison. Serving a life sentence, and we hope it really lasts that long. Valerie wiped a dish and set it on the counter. I dated him for years. I was afraid to try to get away. And then one day, I just knew it was time and I had to, or he'd kill me. I'm so sorry. Valerie glanced over her shoulder to where Jesse was holding Jaren and talking to Stephen. I'm not. It made me strong. I don't think I'd have been ready for my happily ever after with Jesse if I hadn't had that terrible experience with Curtis. All water under the bridge now. She shrugged. Have you ever heard the saying, love can heal all wounds? It's true in my case. Jesse healed me in a way I didn't believe was possible. That's really sweet. You two seem to have amazing chemistry on the show. Valerie laughed. Fans were begging us to marry by the end of season 1. We made them wait months for the first kiss on the show. And they dragged it out? Valerie nodded. They were worried it would hurt the ratings if we married on the show, but when I got pregnant, they decided to write marriage and baby into the script. So much easier than me having to hold things in front of my belly and all the other tricks to hide the pregnancy. Makes sense. Michelle handed her another glass to dry. I'm really glad I got to meet you. You're not nearly as scary as I thought a television star would be. I try not to be scary. I don't even hide from my fans. I think that's neat. The front door opened again, and May and Bob came in. Do you need help? May asked, handing Bobby to Bob. Nah, we're almost done, Michelle answered. Then I'm going to stick in here and talk to you too. Bobby is fussy, and every time I get within 3 feet of her she wants to nurse, even though she's not hungry. It's Bob's turn to mess with her. Is he going to whip one out and feed her? Valerie asked, her eyes dancing. I sure hope not. We do not need naked Bob this morning. After the dishes were finished, Amber walked in with John and Nikki. They all met up in the living room. I can't believe you guys are already leaving, Michelle said. I was just getting to know you. Amber frowned at her. You'll have to come visit the set in Texas. We all want to see you again. Our house is big enough, you could even stay with us. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I really do appreciate the offer. Stephen frowned at that, but said nothing. Their talk would have to happen after the others had left. All right. Let's all get to the landing strip so you guys can head back to Texas. You're directing next week, right? Valerie asked. You're my favorite director, but don't tell the others. I won't. Stephen grinned. Valerie told him that constantly, but he had a feeling she told the other directors the same thing. An hour later, the others had been seen off, and they were back in his cabin. Now, back to what we were discussing before. Michelle looked down at the floor, her eyes filling with tears. I don't want to talk about you leaving yet. We need to. He reached out and took her hand, pulling her over to the couch. I don't want to leave you here. Come with me. What? I can't just leave everything. My practice. He frowned at that. With as much as I travel, I don't know if there would be a way for you to have a practice. I know you went to school for a long time. Could you possibly work when we're here? We? Stephen, I can't just make a decision that quickly. She wanted to take off and travel with him, but it would destroy her mother if she lived with a man she wasn't married to. I can't imagine spending my life without you. I can make this my home base and come back when I'm between projects. He took a deep breath. I love you, Michelle. Please marry me? That's the first step here, I think, because... She blinked at him a few times, tuning out everything he was saying after he asked her to marry him. She flew at him, wrapping her arms around him and holding him close. I love you, too. And the other part of what I said? The will you marry me part? Do you have an answer to that? She nodded. I'll marry you. We'll work out the details later. I can travel with you if we're married. He held her to him. Really? You'll marry me? What's the waiting period in Idaho? There isn't one. No waiting period? I'll marry you tomorrow. Can you come with me when I go back to California? I promise I'll let you live here, but I need a little bit of a honeymoon. She smiled, nodding. I have a friend who can fill in for me. He really wants my job, so maybe I can just let him take over. You mean it? I do. It wasn't traveling and not working that was bothering me. It was the idea of traveling with you without being married to you. I would never ask that of you. Stephen shook his head at her. You'll really marry me? I really will. He sighed, holding her against him. I sure hope Pastor Kevin doesn't have any plans tomorrow. I know something about Pastor Kevin that you don't. He secretly cheers for every single couple that marries on this ranch. He's going to be willing to do it, with no problem. Good. Because I'd marry you today if I could get a license. She frowned. Does this mean I have to go shop for another formal dress? Borrow Kaya's. Michelle grinned. You know what? I think I will. Stephen smiled. I have a tux ready and waiting. Then I'll call now, and we'll set it up for tomorrow. Let's not invite 1,000 of our most intimate friends, though, okay? How about we have you, me, Bridget, and Kaya? That would work for me. We'd better invite Jacqueline and Kelsey. He laughed, feeling as if he was a new man. Absolutely. Anyone you want. As long as she was willing to be his wife, he'd be willing to do just about anything. Who would have thought falling off a mountain could make a man so happy?